Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leung. I'm an ETF portfolio manager and this is the How to Start Investing for Beginners course part 2. Today we'll be talking about setting your investment goals and understanding all about your risk profile. Head back to part 1, the previous video, where we talked about things to consider before you start investing and some common terms explained. So why should you watch this video? Well, let me ask you, when you go on a holiday, do you go knowing that you have a destination in mind? The answer is yes. And when you go on your holiday, do you often spend time planning the main destinations of what you want to see and what you want to do? I would say for most of you, that's a yes as well. So lastly, when you plan your vacation, you've got your ideal destination in mind, you've got things you want to see. Do you plan your motives of transport? How are you going to get there? What's the best route available depending on your budget? Maybe you get car sick or seasick, and it's not a suitable option for you. You physically can't stomach it. So maybe the only option you have left is flying. So when it comes to investing, you don't want to spend years, if not decades, aimlessly roaming around. You want to go into investing with the intention to achieve your investment goals. That's why it's so important to know what they are and to clearly define them. So now your risk profile is like understanding or equivalent to defining your modes of transport. You want to choose the most applicable one for yourself, your needs to get to your destination. So let's start by talking investment goals. So when you invest, it's about putting money to work. So let's start by defining what those goals are and what you want to achieve. It's a plan that helps you decide how you allocate your money between different investments. And it helps you determine what type of investments are right for you according to your financial goals, your risk profile, and your time horizon. Throughout my videos, you'll hear me refer to your personal risk profile and financial goals a lot. Personal finance is personal. I'm not here to give you financial advice, but instead I'm here to educate and teach you everything about money, investing, finance, yourself, and so that you can understand your needs, so that you can make decisions and invest by yourself, and to do so confidently. So let's get into it. Here are the steps to help you build your investment strategy. Determine your investment goals. What is it that you want to achieve? For me, it's about financial freedom and independence. It's a confidence that it gives you, knowing that no matter what happens, you still have your nest egg. And it's very just empowering to know that, I'm contributing towards my financial safety and my retirement. It's about backing yourself and knowing that I am capable and that I am doing everything in my power to achieve my financial goals. But there are other goals as well. I want to buy a house one day, I want to set my kids up for success, and I want a new car. Now, after defining what you want, you have to put a time frame to it. This allows you to make realistic goals, stay on track, and think about how much you can afford to invest. You want to break it down. So you have short-term goals, which are from 0 to 2 years, medium-term from 2 to 5 years, and long-term goals, which are 5+ years generally. Be specific. Be as specific as you want. You include the amount, and let's say for my future dream house, I want a walk-in wardrobe, I want a bathtub, I want a kitchen island. All these details, not monetary, but it's so specific that once you visualize it, it almost becomes real in your brain and it motivates you to try and achieve that goal. So some examples of investment goals include maybe you want to save $3,000 for an overseas trip next year, or maybe longer term or medium term one, I should say, you want to invest $50,000 into your brokerage account by the end of 5 years. And a longer term one is that you want to have a superannuation balance of $500,000 at retirement. So let's do a quick recap. When we're setting our investment goals, we are clearly defining what it is that we want our money and investments to achieve. So you want to put a time frame on it. And then you also want to be specific. Be as specific as you want. Break it down. So break it down in terms of time frame, short, medium, or long. And then you can also break it down as to how you achieve that. So let's go back to the example of I want to have $50,000 invested into my brokerage account at the end of 5 years. So that means on average, I need to invest at least $10,000 a year for me to achieve my goal. And then you can break that down into monthly investing amounts. But because I always like to give myself a bit of buffer and so that I can achieve my goal a bit extra, maybe let's just say I'll invest $1,000 a month every month for the next 5 years. And that's it for the first part in terms of setting investment goals. Or if you haven't set your goals already, why don't you take this time to pause the video, have a think about exactly what it is you want to achieve, and use the framework that I've just laid out for you and write down your goals. And write it down in a place that you won't lose so that you can always keep track of them. Alrighty, let's talk about risk. It's something that doesn't get talked about enough. It gets a bad rep. And I think that's just because, for example, when we talk about investing, people often talk about returns. It's something that you can see. It's something that's easily calculated. But what is risk? Returns is just a much easier concept to grasp and understand, but risk, it's a lot harder. And I don't know if you saw my first video, but risk in layman terms is the chance of something bad happening. So when it comes to investing, I'm sure you've all seen that disclaimer that past performance is no indicator of future performance. And that is because performance is not guaranteed. So it means the risk of investing is that you can lose some or all of your money. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't invest at all, because that's what I'm here to tell you. I'm here to tell you that you should invest, but I want you to do so appropriately. Different investments carry different amount of risk. So some are considered less risky or more safer, but that also means that it has a lower potential of return. Whereas you have your riskier investments, which offer a much higher potential return. In my professional opinion, when it comes to investing, it is just as important, if not more so, to manage your risk than to just manage or care about achieving those returns. Enough about me talking about the negatives. Let's talk about how you can actually get to know about yourself and your risk profile. So we have your risk appetite, which is your willingness or how much risk you want to take on. And then you have your risk capacity, which is your ability. How much risk can you actually afford to take on? So the question that we want to answer when we think about our risk profile is, can I achieve my investment goals with this amount of risk? So now, if it's actually something that you can't afford in terms of risk, it's too risky, that means that you need to adjust your risk capacity or lower the amount of risk that you're taking. Now, on the other hand, if that amount of risk is okay and it's just something, that you can't stomach, the thought of having big swings and big lows just makes you sick, then that means that you need to adjust your expectations and financial goals to a level that is more suitable for you, because that is your risk appetite. So let's dive deeper into risk capacity. So an example of a question that may be asked to help you determine your risk capacity is, which one best describes your income? Is it insecure in that your income varies a lot and you don't have much job security? Is it secure? You have stable income and good job security? Or is it very secure? You have very stable income and you're not worried even if you lose your job or you're out of work for a while. So now the more savings and job security you have, the more risk you can afford to take on. And that's because your chances of losing your job is low, and your savings act as a buffer to cover any costs or living costs in the touch wood case that you do lose your job. So that is why, once again, it's so important to have an emergency fund. Touch wood, but if you do lose your job, would you be able to cover all your bills and living expenses for the next 6 months? If your investments were down 30%, would you be able to weather the storm and ride it out, or do you need to sell and crystallize on that loss? Risk appetite, that is how hungry you are for returns and how willing you are to accept risk and volatility, which just means bigger ups and bigger lows in order for you to achieve those returns. So generally, younger investors have a higher risk appetite. Now that's not just because, they're seen as risk takers, but more so in the case that they have more risk capacity. They have a longer time horizon, so it means that they have more time to weather the storm and for their investments to grow back in the case of a downturn. Now, older investors with a shorter time frame tend to be more conservative, and they might have a bigger focus on capital preservation. That means not losing any money, and they may also have a focus on income generation. Here are some questions to ask yourself to help you determine your risk appetite. How would your best friend describe you in terms of risk taking? Are you a gambler? Or are you a due diligence that, does their research and will take an educated and calculated risk? Or are you a skeptic? Or are you a hermit and just want to avoid risk? Now, if you were on a game show, which option would you take? A, $1,000 of cash. B, a 50% chance of winning $5,000 or nothing. A 25% chance of winning $10,000. And lastly, a 5% chance of winning $100,000. So that was just to see if you would take the more certain amount, albeit a less amount, or you're willing to risk it for a higher potential return. Now that's just on the upside in terms of positive return, but you should also consider your risk profile in terms of losses or negative returns. So now imagine I gave you $2,000 in cash, but there is a caveat. Which one would you rather? A sure loss of $500, so you need to give me back the $500, or a 50% chance of losing $1,000, or 50% chance of nothing and you get to keep the whole $2,000. Now, some people value gains differently to losses, although they might be the same monetary value. I can go into more detail. Let me know in the comments if you're interested a bit more behind, the mental biases and the whole psychology behind investing as well. Here, now I personally love talking about risks, as you can tell I've yabbered on for so long, but others might not. So just so you know, we're near the end, so hang in there. Lastly, let's talk about risk tolerance, which is just defining the limits of those risks. So that is the amount of loss that an investor is willing to handle when it comes to making an investment decision. Now, some factors that influence that decision include your time horizon, your portfolio size, your personal comfort level or familiarity and expertise when it comes to investing. So a novice investor compared to a relatively more experienced one. You also have your age and your investment goals. We generally put your risk tolerance into 3 categories. So you might be aggressive. Aggressive just means maximum risk for maximum potential returns. So that is more suitable for younger investors who have a longer time horizon. So you have plenty of time to both accumulate your wealth and to also recover from any potential losses, and that you won't be needing to withdraw or you won't need those funds anytime soon. Moderate, which means some risk. It's a more balanced approach when it comes to potential risk and reward ratio. Lastly, conservative. Minimum risk, but also minimum or less potential returns. That's more suitable for people that are close to retirement or those who need to withdraw from their funds in a short time period. Unfortunately, we're at the end of this video talking about how to set your investment goals and talking about understanding your different risk profile and the different aspects that it goes into it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you found it insightful, remember to like and subscribe. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok under the handle The Leung Way. So thank you for watching this video and for your patience. Now, the next video is the one you've all been waiting for. That's the one where I talk about ETFs, what it is, the pros and cons, and some history behind it. See ya!